Hey kids, you're listening to the internet's wettest podcast about video games, consoles, and pancakes. The SML Podcast. Prepare for the SML Podcast.
So just a heads up for Zircon here, since no, I guess you weren't here, like you didn't agree to the terms, but since I got here on time, we were thinking I could be Andrew and you'd be Andy, but you didn't technically agree to those terms, so maybe we
I'll take it. We did have a get on top tournament a few years ago. I will not elaborate further.
That is true.
I want more elaboration on this one.
I think the more we elaborate, the less funny it gets. Well, maybe not, but it's way better if we just leave it there.
Yeah, we'll leave it there. What's up, everyone? This is the SML Podcast. I am your host, Joe. Joining as usual, we've got Pernell, Chris, and Aki here. How are you three doing?
Pretty okay. Had a weird day, but I won't take up any of our time with our potential, which we're going to announce soon, but it's been a day.
Oh, what am I going to announce, Pernell?
Well, I'm not going to tell. That's your job.
Banana nut bread.
All right, Pernell, you're the host tonight.
I don't know anything about all of that. Hey, welcome to the SML Podcast. I'm some dude in the corner, and we have a couple of folks on this thing. They're pretty cool, too, but we have special folks here as well. But my co-host, Joe, will tell you who they are, because I'm lazy.
The two Andrews from Impact Gameworks are here. How are you two doing?
Oh, man, doing so great.
I don't know who's Andrew and who's Andy. You guys fight it out. Tell us, who are you? Why are you here? Tell us about the game. Give us all the details.
Who are you, and what are you doing here?
Why are you in my house?
All right, we'll just go with OA and Zircon to make it easier. So there's some distinction.
That works.
And common online handles and such. So yeah, we are kind of the main guys of a small team that have been doing games together for, I guess, like 7 years now, maybe longer. But we've released one game back in the day, and then after a long, arduous journey fraught with peril, we're about 2 days away from releasing our second game.
Yeah,
fraught with peril.
That's like putting it mildly. It's been quite a ride. It's been in the works for like about 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Our first game. So yeah, by the way, I'm Zircon. So both of us actually are not, or we're not, professional game developers. My background is in music. I did a lot of video game music remixes, and then I became a professional composer. And I also make virtual instruments for composers. But I really wanted to make a game, and so I did, and I roped OA into our first game, Tangle Deep. I was kind of like the lead producer on that, and he did a lot of the artwork. And then on this one, this was more OA's brainchild, basically, and he did even more art for it. So pretty much all the beautiful art you see is under either his direct work or direction. And yeah, I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's a gorgeous looking game. I've put a couple hours into it so far. We like to make fun of the word unique on this show because of how overused it is in the industry, but this is something that actually feels really unique and different. It's a mix of RPG and puzzle game, which you don't see often.
Yeah, this was, I would say, we don't know yet if this is going to so we released a demo a couple years ago for Steam Next Fest, and the reception to that was really good. But one of the things since the start of this project has been like, do we put it forward as a puzzle game that has RPG elements, or an RPG game that has a puzzle battle system. And it's definitely the second one. We think about games like Undertale or the newest Paper Mario, Origami King, where those games, it's like they are RPGs, but they just have these like batshit battle systems, which we like, and especially OA in particular. He's well, I've caught up, but he's the skilled puzzle player of the two of us. It's sort of like, this could be an interesting concept if we put it all together.
I do want to ask, out of curiosity, though, of all the puzzle games you could have went with, why Tetris?
Oh, it's a good question. I think and the more you play, the more you can see that it differs a lot, right? But as far as I think falling block puzzles, there's a ton of them, right? There's columns, Tetris, Dr. Mario, the Puyo Puyo, etc., right? And so that's sort of a known quantity, and there's a lot of things, like a lot of design space that we saw that hasn't really been tapped into as far as doing things. And certain things, there's certain mechanics, like the DS version of Tetris for the battle mode has like Mario Kart kind of like weapons if you're doing like a versus mode, that do like some things like that. But we tried to take it a lot further, that it starts out kind of vanilla, but as you progress, and there's different, like every monster has something that will do something to the board rather than just being, harder monster equals bigger numbers required, whatever, right? And so there's a lot of design space there. With that came a lot of challenges we didn't really expect, specifically the insanely wide player skill level of that. So you can, it's like people that have never done, and so it's like, okay, like normally if you're doing like an RPG type game, even like the more tactical ones where you really have to sort of figure out certain mechanics for different encounters, there's like a finite range of success and failure. But something where there's like suddenly there's in some cases reflexes involved, as well as like multiple piece planning ahead. Like someone that's never, like we've watched streamers with the demo play it who have never done any sort of puzzle game before and struggle to make single line clears. And then of course, there's people that it's well beyond anything we could ever imagine, just constantly just breaking our game repeatedly. And so like it's very cool and humbling to see that, but it's also like, man, we were not prepared for the amount of design that needed to go into this. But yeah, so initially it was, hey, there's this design space here that hasn't really been tapped. Maybe it could be fun. And then it kind of spiraled. And I think that's I think the story of the entire game is something spiraled. Like everything took a turn spiraling, I think.
The content has like basically, as we got further into the development process, everything just became more and more unhinged. Like I think that's the best way to describe it, where we started out very conservative with the elements. Like, okay, well, here are the pieces, and you could change the pieces. Later on, it's like, what if a monster drops a giant sword on the board? What if we have all these bombs? What if the board can change size from 8 to 14 tiles? And then that's to say nothing about like the side quests and stuff. But we push things like way into the extremes.
Like, I like hearing these things, because the funny part is, like, when I asked about why Tetris, I was just thinking, like, well, I think Tetris is a lot of fun, or it's accessible, but the answer I got was far greater than that. And even with the early bits I've already played so far, because I know we're not going to talk about the game official till next week, I already was talking to Joe, and I was like, one thing that throws me off about this game, which I'm sure was intentional, is the fact that, well, two things. One, you don't use tetraominoes, you use polyominoes, so it can do more than 4 blocks. But in addition to that, you had early in the game, you have like those like power gems that are inside some of the blocks where you want to link them up to get them to do like a super, like charge up your attacks. But usually they're placed in the blocks in such a way that if you play Tetris and you want to keep everything uniform, it makes it that you can't be uniform and get those combos. And I was like, that is a devious way to set this game up. I can't keep my shit right. It's not working.
Right. Well, and something like that too. There's also it adds some level of thought for like. So say you had just like the standard square piece, right? Where if you're playing something where there's only 4 cells to the piece, you can rotate it all you want. It doesn't matter, right? But when there's a single power gem in one of the cells,
Yep.
how you rotate it actually matters, and there's stuff like that. And then early, if you're super early on, you probably haven't unlocked any, or at least like not a lot of the job classes that
Frogs.
Technically frogs. Sorry, the official term is
frog classes.
Frogs. But there's several of those, and each of them changes how you play in different ways. So usually there's a passive plus an active. You can level up those different frog things, and then some like Zircon was saying before, sometimes it'll change the size of the board. So like for example, the Brigand class, you get that pretty early on. It brings the board size down from 14 wide to 8 wide, and what that means is like because it's intended to be kind of like thematic, right? So like a Brigand, kind of like a dual wielder, they're going fast, and so with it only being 8 wide, your clears are actually quite a bit faster because you don't need as many pieces.
Complete a row.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there's like, and then there's other classes where, they do more damage, but they have like the wider board. And then the class that we started out with is the Freelancer, where you can go into the menu and kind of change your piece loadout. So it's like there's like the 2 cell up through the 5 cell, and I think we have a 6 cell as well.
Yeah, there's 1 6. Also, we shamelessly lifted the mechanic. Actually, just as of today, 2 days before ship, but it was planned earlier on. Like in Final Fantasy V, when you master one of the other frogs, the Freelancer gets a permanent bonus, so you can kind of mix and match in that way. So,
And I liked you did that because that was one of the things I enjoyed about Final Fantasy V. So there you go.
Right.
Yeah, but I will say, like for now, like already, just the stuff I have played of the game, I have been enjoying it. And I like that you keep coming up with like different ways. Like, okay, now you're playing the battle screen, but now you're doing it to like mine for resources. So now you're doing it for this other task. Like that's not battling at all. It's just a different requirement for it. So it makes you think of how you play the game in different ways, even just for various tasks in the game proper.
Yeah, that was something
that's the goal.
Yeah,
I was going to say, coming off that, how do you balance using the powers and the abilities in the game with just being a straight up Tetris player, basically? Because like I'm playing it and I'm focused so much on building up the blocks and doing 4-shot, or using my ability and dropping a 5-piece, clearing that out.
Sure.
And I don't really focus on the abilities except for that 5-piece block I can get. How can I branch out and experience more of the powers and more of the abilities and like change my mindset away from a Tetris player?
I could take this a little bit because my role. So I'm the lead programmer on the project, and like we both did a lot of design work, but I got into the weeds of like the numbers a little bit more and some of the balance. So one thing that we did is we try to give different ways to customize your character that are supposed to like kind of nudge you in one direction. So for example, there's an item that if you clear a line with a 3-tile piece, it deals 33% more damage. That's an item you can get. There's also a perk that you can get. That's like these skills that you can pick up when you level up. You can reset them if you want to, but it's kind of like a very simple skill tree. And one of them, it deals more damage when you clear a single line. So you put those things together, like, maybe I should try like putting those together, doing small clears with like 2, 3, and 4 tile pieces as an example. And then you unlock the Brigand job a little bit later, and that works really well with single clears. So then you really start feeling like, okay, now that I have all those elements together, you get to feel the synergy more and more. It feels better and better to have a strategy like that.
Yeah, and to if I could piggyback a little bit, we try to insert into the game with job classes and with different like as you level up, you can kind of build like a you can specialize into different things with the skill tree. And what we made sure that you can reset it at any time, so you don't feel like you're locked into something for a game. But we also wanted to one thing as far like what you're saying, Joe, is you're kind of more in like the standard like mindset of like build 4s and 5s. We want to make sure that's playable too. But with like some of the build arounds, we've made them strong. So like the standard, you can definitely finish the game with just like a standard like Tetris mindset, but it's maybe not the most optimal. Like, because there's definitely people out there that will min-max everything, right? And so like, and we want to make like some room for them too, so they didn't come into the game immediately and find what is the best build. And honestly, like, I don't know what the best build is at this point. Like, I've seen pretty much every class be like really successful and kind of broken in its own way, with different like taking a class as well as like the different powers, loadouts, and then also like how they're speccing. You kind of take those three things combined with like the play style. Because one thing we did notice when we were watching from the demo is that the players that just only wanted to do single line clears, kind of early on, before we built some tools for them to play that way, we're getting like the scaling got too much for them, so they kind of got left behind. And so we want to make sure that they can finish the game. There also is 3 different difficulty levels, and then a way for there's what we have what's called hold mode, where the pieces don't drop naturally on their own. They just sit there and let you move them where you want. And that was initially done for an accessibility feature for people that either don't have the reflexes or have other, whatever reason it is that they don't want to play something in real time. We wanted to give that to them. But also that a lot of people that are less comfortable with puzzle games choose that, and we've tried to keep that pretty balanced too, but also have the ability to crank up the drop speed. And maybe it comes back to, as we're seeing people play the demo and trying to get feedback and watch them play, it's like, wow, this is a huge like wide delta of player skill and what they're looking for, and it's hard to design, and we're trying our best, but we'll see, in the next couple months.
This is uncharted territory in a sense too, so I kind of feel like it's clear. And due to the beauty of it being on Steam, where you can kind of release patches and stuff as needed without going through like the Nintendo process, you can kind of just do it real time, see what people were into, get enough feedback from it, and just make changes on the fly to make your perfect model. You're
hopefully,
not required to have it right initially.
Absolutely.
And one thing I thought was interesting too, like just in the general vibe, is like if you're saying it can be set up in a way where people can like produce theirself a good run without being concerned about getting multiple lines and stuff, would the trade-off then be like maybe in certain opponents, they get the freedom to say release or do more like small clears, but if they're too slow with those small clears, an opponent's going to drop a lot of garbage on them or make garbage appear or have effects occur, that will result in them still being in trouble, right? Like they just got to make single clears quickly. So
there's the bosses and some of the monsters as the game continues. So we had a couple designers in addition to the two of us contribute some work, and one of them, I basically said, just like spend a year and just go nuts and come up with as many interesting monster powers as you can. And so there, for example, it spans the gamut. There's a boss called Tum Tum Frog, and if you do a large clear, he eats it. It just goes in his mouth directly. But he'll also go upside down. He gets too full, and so you can wail on him a little bit. But then he'll spit the clear back at you a little bit later. So you might think like, okay, maybe I shouldn't do like a big clear on him. But then there's there's a boss later on. You get him to low HP, and at a certain point, he starts counterattacking every attack you do. He throws an ice tile on the board that starts sapping your health. So you might think, okay, at that point, maybe I should not do small clears and I should try to do something bigger, something like that. So there's a lot of those are just two small examples, but like the monster. This is more on the medium difficulty. and definitely the hardcore difficulty. On the easiest difficulty, it's like we try to make it so that pretty much anyone can be successful with more or less any strategy, because it's called adventure, right? So it's supposed to be to enjoy the story, enjoy the exploration, and not make you super stressed out over the combat.
Right.
But in the heroic mode in particular, in hardcore, you get to see all these like kind of twists that the monsters do, where it might make you stop and think like, maybe I shouldn't clear that line. Maybe instead of doing 4, I should do 1, or maybe I should put something on one side of the board or another. There's stuff like that. Like there's actually a power. It's like a heads or tails thing, and you put a piece on the left or right, left for heads, right for tails. Like there's stuff like that where it really just goes off the rails in how we play with the blocks on the board.
So I guess one thing we should probably ask or mention, though, at the same time, people who are listeners could probably just as well look at the trailer on Steam. But just for the heck of it, we've been talking all kinds of mechanics about this game. But what's the general vibe of the game that you're going with? Like, here's an RPG, you control a main character, there's overworld exploration, or there's a rather node exploration, whether you go from on a main map to different locations and explore them. Battles, and the battles are the Tetris game. But like, if you were trying to explain this to somebody who's like, what the hell are they talking about? There's a lot of gibberish, but I got no scope of game. How would you explain this to those people?
I would say it's very much you will feel right at home if you've played any of like the classic 16-bit or 32-bit RPGs. It has that feel to it. So it's very beautiful, kind of like traditional colorful pixel art in a fantasy setting, but it's an original setting. So you're not going to see like goblins, elves, skeletons. Like everything is totally original in that way. And the story, I feel comfortable praising the work on the story without patting myself on the back, because I didn't write any of it. So it's like OA and the writers,
always a good feeling,
and other people. But like it's actually a really nice. It's a nice story because it is not like one of those traditional JRPG, you start as the 14-year-old blue-haired child that, fights and kills God by the end or has to save the world. Like the scope
14-year-old military general.
Right.
The scope it's like a human scope kind of a story. So it's really more about the characters, which I think they end up being like really charming in their appearance and what happens. And it's not like you're going all over the world. It's kind of learning about these people that you meet in pretty much in the first act of the game primarily, and following them. And the main character, Mirai, she does have the classic amnesia, but the way things unfold, again, because we're not putting it in like this giant grand save the world or universe type setting, I think it helps you connect a little bit more, as opposed to zoning out like, oh, okay, like I'm in this giant planet-sized robot now, like, okay, as some JRPGs do.
It's a little more grounded. I think we focus a lot on the story to keep the scope something where it feels like there's a more human connection, and that ultimately, it's our hope at least that that when people play it, they get a favorite character. One thing that we do introduce a little bit into the game is bistro stories, which are basically the same as like a Persona 5 or like Fire Emblem kind of hang out with like a individual person and learn more about like their backstories. Those are probably the most fun of the game, because they're like Zircon was saying before, as we got more and more into the burnout and post burnout of putting this game together, we got just more and more dumb. And so a lot of these bistro stories are kind of like Yakuza flavored, as like just complete zaniness, like not necessarily like canon. It doesn't feel like it's like, okay, like why are they doing this weird thing? It's because it's a side story. But it's like that's the kind of stuff that really let us be like not have to.
I mean, you had me sold that Yakuza storyline. So
yeah, I mean,
I heard Aki's interest get piqued at that one too. I heard an ooh out of her.
I love Yakuza and it's weird shit.
It's
It's the best.
definitely something that like we really enjoy as well. And so, it may not be as like I don't know. I don't want to spoil too much because those are the stories where it's just like probably my favorite Yakuza like of all time side story is like the from Yakuza 0 where it has like the Michael Jackson parody. I think it was Miracle Johnson, and it just like when I first saw it, it's like they can't do that, can they? And then they do like a bunch of them, and it's like okay, I guess they can, yeah. And it just like that level of just going for it, no matter how dumb it is, and the dumber it gets, the better it gets. Is like okay, well, like I'm pretty dumb. I could do something like that. Like let's go. So
basically, the main story quest is like the emotional, the resonant. You connect with the characters, and then a lot of the side stuff is where you get to see. It's like the same environment and the same characters, but it's like the more. It's like, well, what are they doing in the other hours of the day? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which it's a nice balance. Also, one thing that I've learned making games, because this is our second game. The first game was it was called Tangle Deep, and it was like
that was a great game.
Thank you. It was like kind of sort of set in the same world actually, and the character is the same, or is it? But like I found that you can't be too restrained with when you're making anything like story or character related in games, because if you're too subtle, like we're not watching a movie where you can pick up little things in a facial expression, or a TV show where you're spending season after season with characters and talking about them online. With a game, like, you really don't have a lot of time to hook somebody in, and people are playing a million different games, so you need to lean into different. Like you need to lean into different elements of the character's personality, how they talk, how they look, with the side story stuff, like whatever they are, crank it up, because otherwise it's just not memorable. Like there's too many games out there and too many mediocre, I think, stories and forgettable characters. So when we think of games like Yakuza or like Fire Emblem Three Houses, this is a favorite of mine from the last like 5 or 6 years. Like a lot of the characters are just super memorable. And if you were to take one of those and like put them in a TV show or movie, they'd be like super. People would say like, "Oh, it's so tropey," or "That's just the stereotype," or "They're like paper thin." But you have to do that to really make an impression.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing some of these beast stories myself. But I guess what you're also saying is when you make a sequel to this, Mirai's going to become a pirate and sail around the planet here.
Oh, yep.
And save the world.
Go to Hawaii.
That's right. Gotta go to Hawaii, be a pirate. That's just how it's going to be. I'm looking forward to that.
Yep, same.
I had a little bit of a question. Of course, without going way too much into stories, was there any inspiration behind any of the characters or behind Mirai herself? Because I thought it was kind of funny that there's actually another puzzle-based like fighting game called Puzzle Battler Mirai. And I had to check. I'd be like, this isn't the same people, is it?
Whoa, no, yeah.
I didn't know about that.
I'm Googling that right now. That's amazing. No connection.
I will say that, so that's the canonical name for the character from Tangle Deep, which I came up with in late 2016.
Oh, okay.
And,
so continuation kind of thing.
Yeah. So it like the look is the same.
Mirai. Yeah, there it is.
So what he's saying is that Puzzle Battler and Mirai stole their bit.
I mean, I don't know.
Damn you, Wandering Wonder Studio, whoever you are.
Right.
I actually did come close to buying Puzzle Battler Mirai a little ways back. That was really cute. It's a weird game in scope, but it just seems all over the place. So I had it on my wish list. Like, eventually I'm going to play this thing.
It seems to have Tetris Attack, like Panel de Pon style gameplay, so it's been on my like wish list forever.
I hope we get more than 19 reviews in 2 years. Otherwise, we're gonna be eating ramen for a long time.
That's all right.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I can tell you personally, I've had this game, your game, on my wish list for months now. Like, it's been like, when is this game coming out? I want to play this thing.
Oh, so, Jesus, yeah, tell me about it.
Joe was like, hey, you heard about this game called Flowstone Saga? I was like, it's been on my wish list for months. When did you hear about it?
Yeah, funny story about game development. So I actually posted on Reddit today in our game dev a little bit of a like pre-mortem, so to speak, where I just talked about like here are the 5 like big kind of mistakes we made that don't affect the quality of the game, but just like that. Why did this take 5 years? Why did we think we were going to ship this in like 2021? Right, and a lot of it is because I think. A lot of it comes down to the fact that in a JRPG style game, obviously we're not Japanese, so it's not technically a JRPG, but we just say it anyway. A lot of it comes down to like you have to create a lot of art, a lot of music, characters, dialogue, cutscenes, and a lot of that cannot be reused. Like a little bit of it you can recycle a little bit, but it's like if you have this big cutscene with a big set piece. You can't then take that exact thing and use it later in the game. Like that work is just, it's done, that time and money was expended and it's used in that 3 minutes in the game. If you're making like a roguelike, a deck builder, a city builder, the assets that you create for that and the situations, you like by design, you can reuse those over and over again. So like as we were going through this process, we're like, okay, well we think we're about 40% of the way through, but we're closer to like 15% of the way through just because we realized like how much stuff needed to be handcrafted, hand balanced. It's not a procedurally generated game. So that's why it's taken so long is just that linear nature of it.
I mean, 2 games that took over 10 years each to create ended up on my like number 1 of their respective years list, game of the year things. So,
which ones?
Yeah,
sometimes it's okay to slow.
Yeah,
Chris is breaking up.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, and ultimately because we are self-publishing.
Damn it.
Damn, is it that big? He's like, they're self-publishing.
Yeah, no, but since we're and part of it is that because we were self-publishing and we didn't have to answer to any business folks, we could make the decision to, okay, it's gonna suck, but we're gonna do it as best we can, right? Rather than like, oh, oops, we ran out of money, we have to release it in whatever state it might be. It doesn't feel great saying it took 5+ years, but we can feel proud with the actual product, right? And it's like
that's what's important.
Yeah, imagine you picked all of this. Oh my god!
So and like. Would we do things differently next time? Oh, sure. But like, that's because we have a ton of experience of making bad decisions now that we can try to avoid those specific ones, right?
You're supposed to have that experience on the first game, not the second game.
Right. Yeah. A
lot of the experience, like we could not have made it at all without the first game. Just there's like certain even just the technical nature of like how do we get big tile maps in the game? How do we do a dialogue system and controller support? Like that stuff was all really helpful. But the fact that we picked like a completely different genre with like that is really what did it basically. If we were making another dungeon crawling roguelike, it's like, okay, that's 1-to-1 experience. But now I feel like we have 2 genres. So as long as we don't make like Tangle Deep Cart, Tangle Deep Fighter, I think we'll be in good shape. Like we can extrapolate from this to a lot of
Tangle Deep Cart. Oh man. Speaking of Tangle Deep, we've actually had a question come in. Are there plans for Tangle Deep or Flowstone Saga to ever make it to Xbox?
So for Tangle Deep, we have a port for that is done, and I just haven't had the time to do all the paperwork to just get like the admin to get it onto the Xbox store. So actually it's done. Flowstone Saga, having gone through the port process for our first game, so we got it, Switch, PS4, and then the Xbox port is done. So now that we've done that, I was able to do the architecture for the game in a way that it should be like way like order of magnitude easier to port. Like we went into it for day one, like, okay, this has to work controller only. So for example, like I've been playing it on Steam Deck and it works pretty much flawlessly on there. So doing it on like Xbox,
that,
PS4, 5, whatever it ends up being, like it should be way easier to do. So I would say that's a lot more likely, unless we sell like 50 copies on day one, in which case it's like, well, let's just pretend this never happened. But
yeah.
In all seriousness, actually, with the sales thing, like you can kind of guess a little bit how the sale. You can never know for sure. You can kind of guess a little bit based on the number of wish lists that you have, and the wish list, it's like around where Tangle Deep was when that game came out. So if things follow like a roughly similar path, it'll do like modestly well, which we won't lose money as far as like what we've put into paying like the many people that helped on the project. OA and I, we did not pay ourselves anything. This is like funded out of our day jobs pretty much.
Yeah. I did the math real quick, just to interject. I did the math on the hours that I spent on Flowstone Saga, and my current tally is I have paid $14 for every hour I've worked on the game.
Oh wow!
I have, and my timesheet is like over 7,000 hours over the last like 5+ years. So yeah,
Wow.
That's a labor of love right there.
It is, or just bad decision making, or maybe probably like a 50-50, right? Put a
Little
boat
column
in
A,
a
little
blender.
column B. Yeah.
Yeah.
It means to be a creative, right?
I mean, basically, yeah. And and it's been 80% fun. Which I think ratio wise, when you're doing something with like a semi-professional type like outcome you're looking for, is like pretty good, I would say. So,
Man, that's pretty
Right
cool. Second,
Am I coming through again?
I noticed.
No, by the way.
Yeah, I can hear you. At least for now. Andy Sperry's here. Andy, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How you guys doing?
Doing all right. Have you been keeping up with the conversation? Have you heard of the game Flowstone Saga? Is that on your radar at all?
I snuck in here, I pulled it up because I sorry to say, I've never heard of this, but it looks beautiful. I've been watching the trailers for everything, watching all the clips and stuff here on Steam. It looks amazing.
What are your thoughts on blending RPG with puzzle?
I enjoy it actually. I like RPGs. And I like puzzles, and I like the combination. But I think what really comes down to is the fact that you don't want like repetitive gameplay. Like,
yeah,
of course there's stories and there's different characters and like things for you to fall in love with. But I really like what a lot of companies like this one, for example, with Impact, that are taking other elements that you would normally not see in a game like this and throwing them together. So I really like the kind of puzzle state that it's got going on here too.
Yeah, thanks. One thing that you just mentioned with the repetitive, like that being a negative. One of the things we did early on that I think was smart was we looked at a whole bunch of JRPGs on Steam, like not just AAA kind of ones, but also like more indie or Western things, and we looked at all the negative reviews to see like what are the things that keep cropping up, and we like kind of made a list, and we're like, okay, we're just going to make absolutely sure that we do none of that. So just take all that stuff out. So because there's stuff that you associate with JRPGs, like going back to like Dragon Quest, like okay, well you got to grind, you got to get your numbers up for the next boss. So we're like, okay, so we're going to make sure you never have to do that. You can, if you want, you can grind, make your life easier, but everything should be set up in a way that that it's not necessary. People like, oh, I don't know where to go next. Like I lost track of what I was supposed to do, or it's too cryptic. So we make it pretty clear with like flags on the map, like, okay, this is the area you should go to, or this is the NPC you should talk to progress. And in practice, like when you say it like that, some people might have the reaction of like, but isn't that, is that holding your hand too much? But the thing is, if we were talking about a game like Dark Souls or like an open world game or like a CRPG, like a Fallout or something, it's like the player expectation is different. people reviewing those games are like, yeah, please, kick me in the nuts as hard as you can. That's what, like, it's not kicking me hard enough. So it's a different player base. Like the JRPG players are like, I want to make sure that I can get through the game and enjoy the story without kind of like the annoying stuff on the side, or like inventory management, backtracking, like that kind of stuff. So we wanted to make it a more streamlined experience in that way, without streamlining like the length of the story. I'd say it's like in the realm of about 25 hours for the kind of main story playthrough, if you're talking to people and not skipping anything, right? And then it could be longer than that if you're doing the the super bosses and the arena side quests, that kind of stuff. And I think it's a good balance.
We tried to really focus on making sure that there was nothing that was just like a filler arc, right? Like we didn't want to have like we weren't looking for ways to pad out the time of gameplay. We just want to make sure that there was enough interesting things happening in the story, and then with enough side stuff to do to make it feel like it's good value, and that you can spend enough time in this world and really get an idea for like all the characters and the aesthetic and just like everything we're trying to do, but not artificially just add a bunch of like bullshit achievement things or whatever, where it's like get every character to max level, or like that sort of thing, like that sort of thing. I know some people like it, but it's not necessarily what I really feel is compelling gameplay, so I try to avoid that. We may lose, and so it's just like trying to one of the main things what we've tried to do specifically is really respect the player's time, because there's so many games, if someone
That's
spends
a good way to put it.
Yeah, like if someone spends 25 hours with our game and then never touches it again, but they had a great time, like I'm good with that, because it's like, I'm sure anyone in the call right now could be like, yeah, I've got a backlog that like I'm like, I could probably.
Oh man.
No offense to Final Fantasy 14 enjoyers, and I have played it a little bit, but then there are people that say to me like, well, it gets good after the first 100 hours. It's like, okay.
I mean, Realm Reborn is,
I have 2 young kids, like, pass. I can't do it. I just can't.
If it takes 100 hours for something to be good, then it isn't good.
Probably, yeah. I mean, like, I didn't think that, like, Realm Reborn, like the first expansion, I didn't think was very good story wise, but it did get better. But that's like but they had the ability to like get feedback and tweak and like be like, oh yes, what we did was a bunch of like, actually like the very first release of the FF14 is the exact thing I'm looking to avoid, as far as like padded out bullshit that like they fix that later. But like I don't know, I haven't played in a long time, but I remember
I'd say we did a pretty good job, because we've got like some playtests kind of data. We did a Kickstarter for Flowstone Saga, so you have some of the people playing it that backed it. The vast majority of people we're just saying we'll play it on launch day, just kind of like symbolic, or just wanting to play V1.0 instead of something before that. But we also have like some paid QA testers kind of going through it, and nobody has said anything like, oh, this felt, I hated having to do XYZ because it was so repetitive, or I had to grind. And there's just a couple other convenience things, like there's 100% escape rate from every fight that's not a boss. Like why nice. What is the reason not to have that? Like
no.
It's just waste time. Like, okay, I have to spend 3 turns running. Like what did that achieve other than
half my character's dying?
Like, I want to leave. Yeah. Okay, you're done. Escape.
Yeah, and from a story perspective, one thing we tried to do is like, okay, and maybe we went too hard on kind of showing, like later on there's like some cutscenes that go a little bit longer, and by a little bit longer I mean like 5 minutes, right? Not like a lot of the, like some games that I enjoy, like the Trails of Cold Steel, where it's like, oh hey, hope you have like an hour set aside for this cutscene block, like that. Which like I really like that, but it's like not the right. It didn't fit for our game, and I didn't want to, like, just because I enjoy it doesn't mean that like everyone has to do that. But like we tried to, like, the main thing, the story goals were that we really wanted to make sure that there was no like ridiculous plot holes or like really egregious Deus Ex Machina stuff. So like, more natural reactions and like things going on. And yeah, there's maybe some like the amnesia thing is a hard trope, but it's also effective, I guess.
Yeah, that's the hard trope we pick. All right, it's like blue hair, amnesia, kill God. Let's pick one of these. And it's like, all right,
yeah, we only get one.
And you chose the amnesia instead of killing God?
It was because of the scope, because we wanted to have like a more human story where like I don't know, maybe it was a mistake. Maybe we should have put God in there.
DLC. There's always room for DLC.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Blue hair
Kill
DLC.
God DLC.
Kill God. Well, there's time.
Yeah.
Could be so. Usually, I feel like the trifecta, which is either you kill God, you become God, or you romance God, and sometimes it's a combination of those.
And Shin Megami Tensei game, you can choose which one you want.
Yep.
I was gonna say, dang, where's Brooke when we're talking about romancing God?
Yeah, hashtag goals.
Really? I saw her jump in earlier. I messaged her and she's like, I didn't know the people, so I left. Like, Brooke, I was just about to introduce you when you left.
That's what an interview is.
Yeah.
That is a
Getting
very
to meet
Brooke
people.
answer right there. Jesus.
I have a very off the wall question. It's a viewer question I got on Facebook from our friend George Novick, also known as Norg. He says, can you tell them that I sent in my student application to Overclock University with the requested high school transcript, splat test scores, urine sample, and 4,000 gil in non-refundable deposit months ago, and so far I haven't heard anything, and I had to rummage through a lot of people's houses and furniture to wrangle that much cash together. If they're not planning on accepting me, could they at least send back the urine sample if they haven't already utilized it for either some dark selection ritual, refueling the Fruity Loops remix generating engine, or stripping the finish off of Steve-O Bortz's guitar?
That's the door.
That's a deep cuts in there. Oh wait, you gotta give us some context for what Overclock University is, please.
Okay, so yeah, shout out to Norg. I love that guy. Awesome. So Overclock University was basically the house band that Overclocked, that we conned DJ Pretzel to let us be. So it's Steve-O Bortz and I, known as Level 99 in that community. We started this band, and then we convinced Overclocked Remix to sponsor us. And by sponsoring us, we basically just played. We basically just co-opted their name and then turned it into a university. And it was initially based off of like those T-shirts that you would see at like, I don't know, like just department stores of fake universities. And it was we played a bunch of game music covers. It was awesome. We got some sort of violent responses to the name, where one of our friends, who we'll keep him anonymous, when we first told him the name, he said, Overclocked University, if I ever saw someone wearing a shirt like that, I would punch them in the face. And I don't know how that escalated from 0 to punch in the face. He didn't actually do it though.
Now I want to buy a shirt.
Well, you might want to get the as part of our merchandise, we've got a package deal where you also get like a face mask to keep yourself safe. But yeah, that is amazing. I think that the application acceptance letter might have gotten lost in the mail. So if he could just, at his earliest convenience, send some more urine, we could reprocess.
Let me tell him now. OA
By the way,
says send more urine.
Steve-O is actually one of the people that really early on was part of like a conversation we had inspired Hidden Sound Test, which is my Facebook group of over 3,000 people where all we talk about is obscure video game music.
Oh,
That
that's
is
you. I love
amazing.
that group. I'm in that group.
Oh yeah,
very cool.
great. I'm the founder.
Small world.
Yeah.
That is
Now
cool.
you know
That
each
for all the
other a
Final
little
Fantasy
better.
music that gets posted on there.
Hate that guy. I'm gonna ban him someday.
Mario is so obscure.
Oh man, that's ultra troll. Yeah, Steve-O is always great for every once in a while, just on Discord, he's like, "Hey, have you heard this?" And I'm like, "Of course I haven't, but I need to." And so,
Yeah,
got the
it was.
hookup.
I started the group as just a conversation between us, so that and some other people that I met down in Florida at the time. We were all down there for one of the Nerdapaloozas, I think.
Sure.
And it was like 2013, 20. Yeah, it was like 2012, but I think it was 2013 by the time I started the group. Anyways, whatever. It was just going to be like a closed group between friends, and then I started inviting friends to it, and I was like, hey, what if we just made it an open group and just kind of moderated it and, like, you know, just keep
That's
the
awesome.
conversation going with strangers. And then by the time actual video game composers started showing up, I was like, oh, okay, this is actually a thing now.
Yeah, that is awesome though, because like there's so much amazing music out there that like either the game didn't do well or like it came out on a system that wasn't as like prominent or whatever, and it's like yeah, I know that's awesome that there's like more exposure for that, because I think that there's like just based on like all the eras that I generally feel that I'm reasonably like well read on game music, but like I'm not, right. Like there's
I don't even think I am.
Yeah, well, I think you maybe have a bit more self-awareness than I do, because like there's so much, and there's so much of it so good too, that just because it's not like orchestras aren't playing it because they it's like they run out the greatest hits of like what are the big.
It's not just beeps and bloops.
Oh yeah, every newspaper article ever. But yeah, like
with that.
Yeah, who was it that somebody did like a thing on like all the times that like publications have called video game music bleeps and bloops. We actually have that intentionally in our description because we call it bleeps and bloops, peeps and groups.
Well, speaking of game music, so Owe would not mention this because he was the one that wrote it, but the soundtrack to Flowstone Saga is about 4.5 hours.
Yeah,
I freaking love that soundtrack. By the way, that battle music's amazing.
Thank you.
Butt
rock.
That's the OA special. Yeah.
You can check it out. I think is it on streaming platforms also? I know it's on Bandcamp.
Yeah, it's on Bandcamp. It's on Spotify. It's on YouTube. It's on.
It will be on Steam. I don't know if it's going to be live day one. There was like a minor glitch, might be like day two, but there are a lot of live musicians on it too. Which for those that
75 songs, god damn, guys.
Yeah,
that's a lot of songs.
There's a volume 1 and a volume 2.
I vibe with this because as a musician who enjoys video games, if I was to make a video game, I would also completely overload the soundtrack, no matter what it was.
It actually one of the things about the battle music is I think with like any JRPG, like so you gotta have good battle music, but then it's always nice when there's some variation in it. So there's different boss themes in this game. One of the features that we added, though, because we knew that some people would be like, okay, I've heard this 1,000 times. I'm just going to like turn the music off. I don't want to hear the battle music anymore. Sometimes it's a banger and you just want to hear it forever. But it's a little subjective. Everybody has their own taste. So there's actually a feature called the Jukebox where any battle theme you've heard in the game gets added into it. And you can, at any time, switch from standard battle music to your own custom rotation. So it's like a shuffle. So,
awesome.
So you'll have like 8 different themes that the battle theme could be for any given fight. So I just thought that was a cool feature. That wasn't my idea.
I'm going to say right now, more RPGs should be doing crap like that, because nothing I hate more than having an RPG where the first half of the game has this fantastic battle theme, and then you get to the second half, and it's just like abomination that replaces it. You're like, go back to the better one.
Right.
Go back to the... You can't.
Yep.
Or even worse, RPGs that just have bad battle music.
Yeah, that actually.
Stop! This one is not
Secret
that.
of the Stars. I was trying to think.
What? Secret of the Stars?
I'm trying to think. There was one of the Super Nintendo, like the low tier Super Nintendo JRPGs. One of them has just like an abysmal battle.
It probably is Secret of the Stars, although I like it.
I'm trying to think because like like they're like
It's not Lufia. That's the important part. Is not Lufia.
Yeah, Lufia
is god tier.
double
I've remixed the hell out of that myself.
Yeah, would never
same.
speak ill of Lufia.
That's right.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing about Secret of the Stars is it's a Tecmo game, and they made Ninja Gaiden. They have no excuse
for
having substandard music at any point.
Right. Like they're at that point.
I
They're
heard you
obligated,
hutting,
right?
Pernell.
That was hut.
One winged hut.
Good lord, that's a deep cut.
I still love that song so much. There's so many bad songs from our community that I have just loved over the years, like the West Coast Shizzies doing the song from Symphony of the Night, We Are the Wind.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's atrocious. It's so good though.
Norg was also, I think he was referencing we had on Overclock Remix like 10 years ago the Remixinator, which I think would be even funnier if we did that again and it was OCRemix.ai or something.
No.
Just put in the same content. So basically we framed it as like now anybody can make, it is oddly prescient, anybody can make music, and you put in like what, select from any game, and your choices were like Mega Man 2, Terra's theme, things like that. So those are your options. You could choose styles. So it was like techno, rock, and then just a bunch of us just did just super shitty stems, and it would spit out the combination of those. And it was just wonderful.
Amazing.
So that's what he was referencing, and that really would be funnier if like today OCR to AI.
Kirby's Dream Band recently Kirbyfied the Mega Man 2 Wily Stage 1 theme. So they made it sound like a Kirby song.
Oh no, I need to hear that.
Yeah, same.
I heard that when I was playing with the Returners out in California with them. And I thought it was very, very good. I think there's
You're gonna
video
have
of
to
it. At
link
least
that.
there will be. Yeah, pretty great.
Oh man. Well, I know we've been chatting for quite a while about the game. Is there anything that you guys wanted to talk about that we didn't bring up yet?
Well, I know I have one question real quick. It's an easy one because it's going to factor into how I play this game in the next week or so. How do I get an A battle rank, damn it? I'm not getting them.
Get good.
I really want to.
I got 2 S's.
You gotta keep your health near max. So that's it's strictly based on remaining health. So you can game it a little bit if you put so there's the flask. So that's the little items that you can throw on the board with F on keyboard by default, and they're healing items. So depending on how you play, even if you drop below, I think it's like 95% is the S.
Last right before the final blow.
If you manage to heal up, as long as by the end you've healed up. It's fine. I mean, technically, I should probably make it so it's the total damage taken, but I'm not going to do that because it's too much other stuff to do.
Make it cheesable. People will love it.
Cheesable.
Oh, there's plenty. Depending on the player, there's stuff that we thought would be really difficult that is actually just cheesable if you do this one weird trick of like combining certain classes and playstyles and
like this link.
So here's
one weird trick.
Here are the things. Here are the things I want to say that we didn't cover this too. One is for people might be wondering like what if we have any plans for post launch. So just briefly, like we have a short list of some features, mini games, kind of like post game stuff or mechanics that can be accessed anytime that we want to add. How much of that we do pretty much depends on how well the game does. So if it does average about kind of how we're expecting, then we'll get in, probably 75% of it. If it does really well, we'll do 100%. If it like flops pretty badly, then we'll probably only do 1 or 2 things from that list. The main thing that we definitely are going to do 100% is the Switch port. There's also going to be probably a physical release of the game. I don't have a timetable on that, but we do have like an agreement with a publisher.
It's not limited
physical
run,
game
is it?
publisher. Sorry, what?
Is it limited run?
No, actually. So we had an agreement with them for Tangle Deep, and they really dropped the ball on a lot of levels on that, which is why there is no physical copy of Tangle Deep yet. The other thing that I want to add that we didn't cover is just do the side quests. in Flowstone Saga, you will not be disappointed, especially the Spelunks.
Spelunks is probably my favorite, but oh man,
Alphen, Slyman, and Geodor. Enough said.
Oh my God.
I was just looking up freaking chipmunk shit last week, so that's kind of hilariously timed.
Oh, it's we live in a simulation. No, but yeah, like I'll second that the like the main story I think is good. I think it's like charming and fun, and there's some serious moments, there's some funny moments. We tried to put a lot of love and care into all the characters that do show up. And I think that like the bistro stories and the side quests are where I guess it's like, I don't want to say that we didn't care, but we didn't care about like what people thought, right? We were just like, this is really funny to us, and like someone else will appreciate it too, hopefully. And I think like that's what like you can really see the character of the game, and like what like is charming about it.
Hey, I mean, that's what this all should be all about. Focus on what you want, and your audience will find it.
Exactly.
Well, I can tell you right now, I am a major fan of irreverent humor. So if that's what you're talking about, you may have me already on board. But the game itself, early spoiler, and I think I said like Chris is on that level too. It's a good game to start. Like it's already fun. So now it's just a matter of like, what do the added things change when I get my job changes and stuff like that? What will that do for me? But I'm already enjoying it. So
thank you. I'm glad.
Thank you. Yeah, really appreciate that.
Now I do
not
have to
100
ask
hours
this,
in
though.
yet, so I can't say.
That's when it gets real good. So I got to ask, though, if this game does well, and you hear people say, do another RPG that uses puzzle elements, will we see a magical drop version of this?
I want Panel Depon, even though there's already games like that.
Yeah, I think like in some hypothetical future scenario, like we would probably build off of, but make like additional. I don't know. It's hard to really say, and this is like what I would like speculate on now would probably change too. But I think like a lot of the job classes we have right now are really unique, but having the time to be able to make ones that were even further out. So like maybe one would be, kind of like a Dr. Mario or whatever, where there's like, or columns, right? Where there's like, it matters about, or like maybe not Puzzle Fighter, because like they've already perfected that sort of thing. But like where colors matter for a job class, or if it is more like, like Puyo Puyo or like the Puzzle Pond, or like that sort of thing of like putting more types of it like into how it works and seeing what might be interesting with like the monster abilities that we have throughout, or like that sort of thing. And then it's like where we could take the narrative, what would we want to, would we continue the narrative? Would it start like a whole new story, like kind of like the Final Fantasy games? Each one is kind of in its own like different like universe or whatever. Like hard to say, right? But I think like we would a lot of, if we did a second one, it would be like a lot of the things we learned we would be applying to not kill ourselves, because it should have been done 2 years ago and it just wasn't.
I don't know, whatever you decide to do, I'm looking forward to the next steps too. It's just, I had to get my question about a different puzzle game because, as Chris said, he loves Panel Depon, and I love Magical Drop.
I love Tetris, so you already got me.
You gotta do a Hatris version, Final Hattasy.
Oh man.
Christ.
Nice.
You can have that one. No one wants that one.
All right, Aki, any final questions from you, Aki?
You know me, I'm terrible at these. So, what all is actually connected to the puzzles? 'Cause we've heard, different things that are attached to the puzzles. What all do the puzzles get attached to?
Oh, sure. That's a good question, actually. That we should have said so before. So thank you. That is a very good question. Maybe the best question so far.
The only good question.
I didn't say that, but
No, it is. It was the only good
but I
one.
strongly inferred it. So hopefully,
Yeah.
So yeah, we spent a lot of time. So like battle wise, like that's like the primary puzzle type, right? And there's a lot of customization that goes into that. There's two other puzzle types that use the board. One is kind of like a like fill in the shape with this sequence of puzzles. Like I'm not sure if any of you when you were
Oh, I
kids
like those actually.
like did like tangrams, but it's
The
kind of similar.
tangrams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the thought there is like, and we try, not every single puzzle has like the perfect like design to fit what it does thematically in the game, but we tried to get as many as we could. So like early on in the game, in the very intro part, Mirai is escaping and she needs to repair a ladder. And so like the shape that is there is like shaped like a ladder. And so like we try to do stuff like that. The other one is when you're mining for resources to build up the town. It's kind of like a time attack, sort of. Basically, what happens is your buddy is throwing resources on the board, and everything you clear, you collect. And it's basically you have 1 minute to do it. It's not necessarily a pass or fail. It's just like whatever you clear in that minute you get. It's we tried to make it not really stressful as far as time, because I know there's some people that when you start timing something, like all fun gets drained away.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay, well, don't worry about this because it's like you can do it as many times as you want, and then if something good gets dropped on the board right before like the time is up, you can pay a small amount of gold to extend the time by 30 seconds. Because so sometimes there's like a rare drop to do like a treasure chest full of gold, and so it's like that'll probably be more gold than you're spending to do it. So it's like we tried to keep it really relaxed there. And then there's some in some of the dungeons. There's kind of like a kind of a standard RPG. Hit different switches to open or close like a toggle doorway, and you have to do like the right sequence and stuff. So there's some of those too that aren't in a puzzle field. It's all on the world map. But we tried to have some fun stuff.
Okay, and a majority of these puzzles are Tetrisy, yes?
Yeah. So the tangram ones, it's basically it's like you have between 3 and 5 pieces that they don't drop, but you just move them into place, and you have to have them all go on like the right shape. So that's kind of Tetrisy because there's rotations and moving. And then the resource gathering one, it's a different type of piece loadout that's assigned for that. That's really geared towards super tiny clears because you're just like grabbing. You just want to do a single clear to like grab some like dirt or some stone or whatever is being thrown on the board.
Okay. I do like that mini game, by the way. And one thing worth mentioning to Aki on that front regarding the shapes, the tangrams puzzles. I mean, I want to say at least for some of the ones I found, you can just retry them. Like if you're like, crap, I didn't get it right, you can just retry it until you get it right with no pressure.
Yep.
So
nice.
Yeah, like we tried to make sure that like from an accessibility and just sort of fun perspective that there's no there's no really big like stress inducing like things we're doing here, and it's like any of the tangrams.
There's no Moonana-esque puzzles where you can't get the best weapon in the game unless you get this puzzle right on the first time you see it.
Yeah, no,
of course, Pernell finds a way to bring La Mulana into this.
I have to.
Nice. Yeah, and I think and any of the tangram type puzzles that are required to finish the game, because there's some that are kind of story based, those are generally going to be the easier ones. And then usually if there's so for example, there's like some in the first main dungeon where like there's you solve the puzzle to open a door, right? And there's some treasure chests in those. Those would be a little harder, but still still pretty solvable. I think there's a couple that are really hard, but they're like way out of the way and they're way later in the game. And I know that they're really hard because I was getting, bug reports from Zircon saying, "Hey, I don't think you can solve this puzzle." And then as soon as I saw that, I'm like, "Yes, I got him."
I'm like, well, actually,
Sad but true.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's pretty good. I mean, and in full disclosure, there's plenty of things that I have done that were exceptionally foolish. Where I'm like, I don't know why I can't fix this weird like content bug. And so like it goes both ways, right? Like I'll give him a friendly poke, but only because I feel like I need to bring that up because of my own my own issues with some of the code base.
I'll take the L. It's fine.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You're a real one.
Earlier, you mentioned how there wasn't an achievement for getting a character to max level. What is the max level in this game?
We ended up on, so there's some interesting comments actually. Somebody asked on Twitter, they're like, I hope this isn't one of those games with a low max level cap. I want to get to 99.
Uh-oh.
And I had to sit back and think about that for a second. It's like, well, I guess there is kind of like something psychologically satisfying about getting to 99. But that
I'm
being
totally
said,
not one of those people. Totally. Yeah, no,
like,
totally not.
At the moment, it's 50. If we were to,
okay,
I could potentially see. Like the problem is like just if we just take everything as is and put it to 99, the scaling will get a little weird. So I could see, within a month of launch, like we might adjust the curve, after level 40 or something, so that it's more evenly distributed. Because right now everything is curved up to 50, if that makes sense. So we would want to adjust that a little bit. But by the end of the game, your expected level is probably going to be like low 30s. That's if you're not grinding or anything. You're just kind of like playing the game, fighting monsters that you see, but not going out of your way to redo anything. So again, yeah, grinding definitely not required. Yeah. But we wanted to make it possible. You might find gold frogs. That's our metal slime of the game. It's just it's a giant golden frog with a treasure chest overflowing with gold physically growing out of it. And when you see one of them in battle, the music changes to just a batshit like rodeo metal. It's great.
What's the name of that one? I gotta find that song. What's the name of that?
You know what?
One?
Don't find it. Get to it. You got to get to it.
You mean
no? Because we gotta we gotta play it on the show. Pernell.
Oh,
clearly we got to play music at the end of the show.
I just did it like last week.
Yeah. So here's like the thing here is that the song is so special it's not even on the soundtrack because, and we'll just leave it at that to give it mystique and not the more.
I'll throw it in the PM though.
Yeah, drop it because they deserve this.
It'll be an exclusive SML exclusive.
It is true. But yeah, it's not on the soundtrack itself, because
also the turbo fishing theme isn't either. I threw that in later.
Okay, cool. So there's 77 songs.
Holy shit!
That's a lot of songs.
Yeah,
I gotta buy the soundtrack after the show because this looks like a lot of good music.
I'm sure
there's a lot of good people involved. I'm doing a show. I can't buy anything now.
We put our. I say we. OA does, but I would have done the same thing in his shoes. But we're both musicians. We value the contributions of other musicians. So there's like dozens and dozens of live musicians playing all over the soundtrack, which I think is cool. So yeah, good stuff on that again, OA.
Yeah, my goal was that like the game could sell 2 copies, but at least like. The soundtrack is like something I'm super proud of, and I got to work with a lot of my friends on it. I got to make some new friends while working on it, and just like some of like it was supposed to be 35 songs, and then as like the scope of the game grew, and I'm like, oh, I got an idea for this one thing. Let's like I think there's probably like 10 different battle themes throughout. There's like standard battle theme. A bunch of bosses have their own specific theme. And it's all stuff you can like once you hear it, you can put it into the jukebox or whatever. But tried my best to make some banger music. So.
Well, from what I've heard so far, mission accomplished. I think it's a great soundtrack. I think it's a great game. We've been chatting for quite a while. We are going to have to wrap this up. It's been like almost an hour and a half. I can't believe we went so long. This is great. I love it.
Fun chat.
It is. It's a great chat. Cool. It's not often that we have an interview go this long and we're actually all enjoying it.
Well, cool. Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm having a fun time too.
So, Chris, any final questions on your end?
No, I'm good.
Andy, anything on your end?
No, I think this game looks awesome, man. I'm excited for it.
Very cool. My final question is there a reason that the preview piece at the bottom is just a shadow of the bottom of the piece and not the entire piece?
Yes.
Yes.
Is it a legal reason related to Tetris?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. That
Wait,
makes
seriously?
sense.
That's hilarious. At the same time, totally understand.
Yeah.
I kind of figured there had to be a reason behind that.
We definitely have had a lawyer carefully investigate as much as possible and make sure that we are not going to
piss anyone off.
Well, yeah, like we've
draw
learned
the ire, so to speak.
Yes, there's no ire drawing intended, and we've been very, very careful, even if it means that some of the things that we would like to do cannot be done.
That's fair. No legalities and trademarks and all that fun stuff is never easy to manage and wrangle.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, tell us one more time. Tell us about the game. Where can people get it? How much is it going to be? Give us all the details on the game, the soundtrack, everything.
Well, Flowstone Saga is coming out on September 26th on Steam. So it's going to be available on PC, Mac, and Linux native. So full Steam Deck compatibility. It's a good old-fashioned traditional JRPG, but with a unique puzzle battle system that we've been talking about. The soundtrack is on all streaming platforms. Bandcamp hopefully should be available day one on Steam, if not very shortly after, as like with the bundle. The day one price with the discount is going to be like in the about $14 and some change, I think. I think that's where we ended up.
Yep.
Yeah. And so that's and Switch port sometime 2025. I don't know exactly when.
Oh, man, very awesome. Andrew and Andrew, it has been an absolute pleasure having the two of you on chatting about the game. Go check it out when it launches later this week, everyone. We're going to take a quick break. We will be back with some more show after a quick little musical break. And does anyone have any final words to wrap up the interview?
Thanks for having us.
Congratulations on releasing your second game.
Thanks. Appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for sticking around. Another huge thanks to the Andrews at Impact Gameworks for coming on and chatting about Flowstone Saga with us. That was a really good chat. Thanks to you guys for hanging out for the whole thing. We got some reviews to take care of. Are y'all ready for those?
I don't know about that.
Y'all ready for this?
Yes.
Y'all ready for this?
We're all terrible. First game to talk about tonight is Melobot, a last song developed by Anomalie Studio, published by Microids, released September 12th on Series X and S, PS5, and PC for $24.99. An adorable musical robot named Melobot, created to preserve humanity, awakens on a strange silent planet consumed by a mysterious dark matter. Now Melobot must embrace a role it was never programmed for, the role of a hero. Pernell and Aki, both of you played this one. Pernell, how about you kick us off? What is Melobot, a last song?
Okay, so Melobot is essentially takes place in a universe where humanity discovers something called a mellow plant. Mellow plants are musical plants that are harmonious. So they're just nice musical plants. But they also discover that by harvesting mellow plants, they can yank a substance called dark matter out of them, which is a fantastic source of energy, oil. And over time, they realize that this has a dark side that is corrupting the planet. But before they realize and are able to stop it, it is already too late, and the planet goes to absolute crap. And humans all but essentially go extinct. And at this point, a little robot that was built prior to all this going down is awakened over time and left to figure out what the heck's going on. But it turns out that one of the humans that was left modified Melobot to be able to purify these plants and hopefully undo the damage humanity has wrought with the dark matter, blending or extracting. So you play as Melobot, exploring a variety of different biomes in this game, with the intent being to purify these worlds and save the day. Also learning a little bit about the world and yourself in the process. Gameplay is pretty simple. Melobot, correction at the beginning, I'll mention this later. Melobot goes from biome to biome and walking around. He is trying to discover corrupted plants, and when he's out there, he can walk up to them, and what boils down to playing a simple music game where you're trying to replicate the melody that the plant itself plays. And if you succeed at doing so, you purify the plant and come one step closer to purifying the biome itself. This can be either not easy, but fairly doable, and very much so a pain in the butt unless you're a music aficionado or with the intent of desire to become one, because there are two difficulties in this game. There's easy and hard, and typically hard is my go-to, but this is a review game, and the metric that comes out of hard, I was like, I ain't got time for this. But what happens is in easy mode, the melody is still timed out, but you're able to see what buttons correspond to the notes that need to be played during a particular song on a plant. There are 8 different buttons that correspond to 8 different melodies. Hard mode, you don't get to see what the button is, which means all you can do, well, I don't say all you can do, but what you're intended to do is know the melodies that the buttons play, and then when you hear the plant sing it, you have to know that melody is coming from this button. I have to play it in time with the plant. And I'm not, honestly, I think it's a pretty cool thing. It's just be ready to really sit down and get attuned with your musical senses if you decide to go that route. But due to the sake of me getting this review done, I decided to stick with easy and have the buttons displayed to me. And with that said, though, you can still absolutely mess this up sometimes, because just because the melody is displayed on the screen, you will occasionally find yourself missing a little bit, mainly because the game rates you on how well you do the melody between 1 and 3 stars, my favorite rating system in America. I just want to get all 3 stars. I refuse to leave a plant with 1 or 2 stars. It has to be 3. So I will suffer through that. Over time, as you purify different plants on the planet, you'll eventually summon the wrath of the biome's guardian, who will shoot down from the sky and demand retribution from you because he's a dick. At this point in time, it is worth describing the 2 or 3 of the other abilities that Melobot has access to. While you're fighting the boss, and also just while you're walking around the planet, you can do 3 additional things aside from just singing to the plants. You have a dash button, which when you hold down that button, being the left trigger, Melobot can move a little bit faster on the map. However, this dash has a timer, and once it expires, because you've dashed for too long, there's a cooldown period and an annoyance period, because Melobot is extremely slow when he's not dashing. So I immediately worked on that, and I'll explain how I did that later. Melobot can also use an ability to heal himself, or more so heal his shielding, because he has a shield before he takes damage to his health. And if you hold down the basically the B and Y buttons together, you will charge up charge up the Melobot, and then he'll start to heal his shield back up. And I believe he also gets a little bit of a wall around that kind of guards for a temporary period of time. And the last thing that he can do is he can release a shockwave. Holding down the A and the X buttons expands a field of damage. And when you let those two things go, anything within that field of range will take damage from the shockwave. And that's pretty much what you need to use to fight bosses once you understand what you need to damage and get in and out as you need, which you'll use the dashing to bob and weave through. For the most part, aside from one last thing, actually I'll mention that now. That's mainly the game, except additionally to that, as you play, you'll gain access to idea bulbs, which you can take back to the main ship and upgrade a rather mellow or relaxing skill tree. Nothing too complicated. We're talking like maybe 10 or 12 nodes total that can expand on Melobot's abilities. And with that, that's what I was referring to earlier. I pretty much burned all my initials on the dash to max that out because holy cow, I need to dash as much as possible in this game. I'll stop talking for a little bit because Aki needs to get some time to chat too. What you think, Aki?
Oh, I thought, going back to the hard and easy modes to this, there's the correct mode and the wrong mode, and the correct mode is just being told what buttons to push. Just outright, because that is way too hard otherwise. I thought this was a pretty fun game. I started it this morning at some point, and I finished it before noon. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I 100%ed the game. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really liked the combat with the Guardians. There are a couple difficult achievements in this game. Namely, like there's one for beating a Guardian without taking any damage. Do it on the first one, or else you're screwed. You're very, very screwed. Because the thing about the Guardian is, every time you fight it, it has evolved the way it fights. You fight it basically 2 times in every single biome, and there's a bunch of biomes. So it just gets harder and harder and harder to beat. So get that achievement very first time. Trust me, it's worth it. Other than that, you go around, you can heal every plant, and I believe in order to actually get 100% in a region, I believe you actually have to get it 3-starred, which means doing it almost perfectly. There's a musician, which is a 1-star, which is technically the worst I completed it ranking, which is actually surprisingly hard to get at first. Then there's expert, which is 2-star, and then there's
Virtuoso.
Yeah, that. Thank you. I'm glad you could pronounce it because I couldn't. Which is 3. And at first, it is really hard to get anything but the 3-star. Later on in the game, it is very easy to get 1 and 2 stars, and it starts to get real hard to get 3 because the plants sometimes will be really difficult. So it's not like, every level the musical bits just get harder and harder. No, there are different types of plants in each biome, and each set of plants has their own melody that you have to play, and some of them just happen to be a real massive pain in the butt. But I believe you have to 3-star all of them to get 100%, and there's an achievement for 100% in each and every biome. So I managed to do it, and I have absolutely no rhythm. You guys, you can all do it. I promise. The thing is, while you're playing the music, it's not just hitting notes, the correct note. You actually have it playing the notes above, and you have to play along with. You should always start your notes right before their note starts. That way it gets clicked as, you started it on time. Because if you click it right when it starts, it's late. So you always want to be a little early to it, so you can get the 3 stars. Otherwise, you might get 1 or 2. Especially on the harder ones, which really switches it up. Because at first it's, the D-pad and the face buttons, but eventually later on, they also add in R3. which makes life really difficult. At least it did for me. I was not good at hitting that button.
Well, R3 is hard to really hit with the timing. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. All the biomes are completely different. Each one is its own individual place. Like the first area you're in is like a little meadow. Then I believe the next one is a forest. Then there's like a desert and a snowy field and stuff like that. So you're seeing completely different areas, which is nice.
This is also nice that. Also, while you're on that point, I think it's good to mention that in addition to that, which is kind of nice musically, is each biome also comes with its own instrument style. So, like the desert is the drum and the forest was like horns, for example. So, the melodies you're playing from the individual plants has their own unique appeal to them, too, based on the planet you're on. But don't.
Okay. But then there's also... when you're going and finding all these plants, there's sometimes also basic enemies which can be destroyed in 1 or 2 hits if you've been upgrading your damage anyways, which is the first thing I suggest to anyone who goes to play this. Just upgrade your damage dealing first. Just max that out real quick, because that will do you a lot better than literally anything else. And you go into an area that's basically this fog of war area, and then once you're in it a handful of steps, suddenly some enemies drop down. And honestly, as long as you've been upgrading your damage, you can kill them in a hit or two. All of them in just 1 or 2 hits, not each. So it's real nice, real quick to deal with, and then you can go and collect the plants in there. I did have one irritation I found with this game, and it was very irritating to me. After you have healed so many plants, the Guardian appears. You can still heal more plants typically. Usually there's enough to bring you almost to the second time the Guardian appears. But at some point, you're going to have to walk in and kick the crap out of the Guardian. Immediately after beating it, you get teleported to the ship. And you have to talk to the guy who made you. And then you can exit. The problem with this is the area where the Guardian was is an area you can't have obtained any plants yet. It just opens up to where you can access that area when the boss appears. So now you have to walk your way all the way back to that area to start healing the plants in there. And it does this literally every single time you fight this damn thing. So it's 2 times in every single biome where you get taken from the area where you could continue to do stuff back to the ship, and then you have to spend a few minutes getting back over there, and it's just an irritation. I really would have preferred they would have just not done that. It's nice that they do it for some people, because after you beat the Guardian, you get an upgrade point. So you can be better equipped to handle the next Guardian fight, but I really would have preferred just being able to collect everything in that area and just keep going around and then doing my upgrades in between biomes personally. Just because that, for me, is less of an unnecessary time sink. I really didn't like that. And if you die, you also obviously teleport back to the ship. So it's like, I just want to go back to exactly where I was so I can just keep moving.
Oh man. All right. Well, we got to talk price on this one. It clocks in at $24.99. What do the two you think of Melobot?
Pernell, you go first.
Well, sure. Well, I feel like Melobot makes for a nice mellow relaxing experience in and of itself. It's not going to really bring a ton of challenge, but at the same time, I would expect that people coming to this game aren't looking for that at the time. They're looking for a nice, cute little robot, cozy exploration game where you can kind of get a sense of like relaxation as they revive a dying planet or a dying world. And I will say, the music that some of these plants puts out is pretty bopping. So
yes, it is.
That in itself makes it pretty interesting to play through for myself. So I think it's at least a solid try.
I think it's totally worth a buy. I'm just not sure who exactly the target audience for this is, because it looks very cartoony and for children, but the rhythm gameplay for healing the plants is difficult, and I question how many kids would be able to do it. So I'm not sure who exactly this is targeting, but I totally think it's worth picking up and playing.
I mean, I will say that I can, with your, especially because you already said it was a buy it on your end. Like, I feel like a kid playing this game, even though it's going to be a little challenging outright, I can see them at least coming away with 1s and 2s. And for the most part, you're not going to max achievements per se, but you can probably get decent progress on 1s and 2s. And then if they practice enough, maybe they will be like the savants, like, oh, look at me, Dad, I got me a 3. You're like, good job, son or daughter. so
There
I mean,
it is.
but yeah, I do like that aspect of it. Like, I think sometimes one of the nice perks to having like the 3-star system, as much as I rag on it, as long as the game doesn't require you to hit perfects on everything, it does make room for accessibility for people who may not have the skill to make the perfect ranks on everything.
I think most people are going to be able, most adults, I think, will be able to actually get this with all 3 of them starred, because I did. And I'm terrible at rhythm, and I'm blind, and I have no rhythm. And yes, I know I said that twice, but that's just how bad it is.
And you're rhythmically blind.
Yes.
GG. All right.
Barely.
Moving on, next game to talk about is Pureya, developed by Majorariatto, published by, Mameshiba Games. I hope I said that right. Released September 19th on Xbox One, Series X and S, Switch, PS4, PS5 for $5.99. Simple arcade games are great, but they could get boring quickly. What if they changed every 10 seconds? Andy, what is Pureya?
I'm so glad you said the name too, because I was trying to pronounce it.
I don't know how you say it. I probably said it wrong.
I was like pureya or pureya or pureya.
Good enough.
Go with that.
Yeah.
Let's do it. So Pureya is a mashup of like 10-second mini games, like you said. These 10-second mini games are ran into 10-second rounds. So essentially, you're dumping in about 100 seconds per like game round. Honestly, with something like that too, it kind of feels like you've played way less than you've realized, as hours of your life goes by and you realize you've played 10-second mini games forever. And there's a difficulty meter that increases the speed of your character and like the objects around you, object count on the screen. And then it also adjusts like while you're playing too. So it is as Famicorp said, kind of like WarioWare. I'll talk about that more in just a second. The goal of each mini game is to collect as many marbles as you can within that 10 seconds. And of course you're gonna run into things. You're gonna fall off the screen. You're gonna die. Kind of boost you back in with that 10-second countdown going. And then once you finish those 10 mini games, you're kind of sent to this like pachinko board in between rounds before you move on. All the marbles you've collected up to that point, you'll essentially try to send them toward a specific spot in the pachinko board. And so doing that will unlock like character skins. It'll unlock like music. So it's like music records are in like halves. So it'll be like one half and the second half. Or it'll unlock like a piece of a mini game, which you have to collect 4 in total to get a new one. And so you're getting anywhere between, I mean, if you're absolutely terrible, at the mini games, you're getting like maybe 10 marbles, per mini game, and that's on the low side. To I think the most I got in mini games was around 40 to 50 or so. And some of those mini games are like pretty interesting. A lot of them are pretty basic, so it's not anything you're jumping into and kind of like freaking out like, oh, how do I play this? It's usually just like a directional game, So there's no names for any of these, but I named some of them myself. I'm going to tell you some of the names I came up with. So There is asteroids. That one's pretty self-explanatory, you know. There's Bat Cave, where you're like a little bat flying back and forth, like trying to grab stuff. One I call Pirate Attack, where there's like three.
Oh, I hate that one.
That one's really tough, dude.
That one bothers me because there's no consistency on where the balls will land. Like if it's the first one, it might go like the first half of the screen, but you don't know where. So you could be at the front of the stage and still get clipped by the middle ball, which sucks. Like that one, that one I had problems with.
That one's definitely a little janky. I probably lost most to that one and the penguin jumper. That one threw me off all the time.
That was a tough one too.
Seahorse Bubble Drop was a good one. Monkey Sideways Climber, pretty good too.
I like the snowboarding one. I was pretty good at that one.
Snowboard one was great. Desert Bubble Jump was like a little bit difficult, but pretty good too. Goat Climber was awesome. That one's very like Doodle Jump, you know. A lot of them are like remind me a lot of like Flappy Bird or like, you know, Doodle Jump, like some cell phone games that I'd gotten before, you know.
Just like quick pick up and play, easy to go through mini games that you just cycle through, and I appreciate that the unlocks keep you coming back. I wish stuff unlocked a little faster. Like collecting 4 pieces for each mini game when you don't know how many marbles it's going to take you to actually unlock a piece.
So actually that's one of the things that I kind of had trouble with it too, was the fact that, you know, you get 40, 50 marbles, you know, for a run. You can get more because there's other game modes too. I don't know if you check those out, but there's like an endless mode and there's like a continuous play kind of thing. And you can get a lot of marbles like that way, and it carries over into like, you know, everything. But yeah, getting 4 different pieces was difficult. And at 30 plus mini games, I mean, you start with 10, so you're playing the same mini games over and over again for a long time, and that was kind of annoying. But
the thing is, it says there's like 30 mini games in there, but there's so few unlocked at the start.
Honestly, I think there's 10 mini games right when you first start the game.
Yeah.
So I unlocked probably 5 or 6, and I thought they were all pretty good. But you know, you're playing a lot to unlock those 5 and 6. Yeah. So if they were unlocked a little bit faster, that'd be cool. And then it, like I was kind of saying, it feels very repetitive because you're playing those 10 games over and over again. But I guess it's like the dopamine kick that really gets you. I mean, and there's like not really like an end goal to any of them too. So
it's just to play at your own leisure and stick around.
Yeah, as Famicorps was talking about like WarioWare, it is kind of like WarioWare in the sense that you get a new mini game, you know. But I would say the biggest difference is WarioWare, it's like put the hot dog in the bun, you know, or something, and so. Like you achieve that by doing the task in the time allotted. And if you don't do that, then you like fail that game. This is pretty much like you can die and then like it'll keep going. Yeah. Or the whole goal is just to like grab marbles. So there wasn't really any like end point to any one game, you know? So I don't really feel like it like resolved, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm like always chasing that dragon. Got it in me, you know. but yeah, no, that's pretty much pureya.
The good thing is it's a fairly cheap game. It clocks in at only $6. What are your thoughts on that?
I would say try it out, you know, at $6 too. Like if you can get a lot of the mini games unlocked, like I'm sure it would be great, you know, getting a random assortment of 10. And you can also play these like on your own time too for like a high score or something like that. But yeah, I would say try it because the beginning grind just feels like too much of a grind right off. So
if you could either unlock marbles quicker or get the unlocks through the pachinko board more consistently, I would say definitely buy it as it stands at $6. I think it's a good try it, or fuck it, why not? Like,
yeah,
it's cheap. It's entertaining. Cheap. So
It was fun. I think that I don't know if you had this problem too, but like the pachinko board, I felt like was such a troll. Like I would I could not get my marbles to like hit the goal like hardly ever, and so even if I had like 1,000 marbles, it was like maybe I'll unlock like a few things, so
yeah. The funny thing is I actually did stock up to 999 marbles and I went through and I really didn't unlock that much.
Oh yeah, dude, that sucks.
It's so easy to just burn through marbles and miss everything.
Yeah, that's what, three marbles per shot. How many? That's 333 times.
Oh.
Not bad, dude. And you unlocked too many games.
Again, I was like dual sticking it with like ball shooting out of both ends. So ball squad,
dude. Let's go. Hell yeah, man. Yeah, I would say try it. If it goes on sale, I mean, it's $6 too. Yeah. Try it. Why not? Go for it.
Cool. All right. Well, Andy, that is it for you. We will let you get going. Thank you so much for coming on and hanging out with us for so long tonight.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts, final words before we let you go?
No, man. I mean, I would tell everybody to go check out the game we were talking to the developers with earlier today too. It sounds like they have a lot of love and passion into that title.
You gonna pick that one up when it releases on Thursday?
Yeah, I threw it on my wish list too. I was just about to download the demo for it too.
Nice. You'll have to let us know what you think.
I definitely will.
Cool. Well, we will let you get going. You have yourself a wonderful night.
You as well. Kick ass, guys.
Take it
easy. Catch you later, good sir.
Peace.
Nighty night.
All right, next game to talk about is Keylocker, turn-based cyberpunk action developed by Moonana, published by Serenity Forge, released September 18th on Series X and S, Switch, PS5, and PC for $19.99. In a silent world where music is outlawed, plays a singer to shatter the strings of fate and sing the melody of freedom in this unforgiving turn-based rhythm JRPG. Pernell and Aki, both of you covered this one as well. Pernell, how about you start us off? What's Keylocker?
Nope, I'm throwing down the gauntlet. I started the last one's Aki's turn.
All right, Aki, what is Keylocker?
Okay. In this, you're playing as criminal. You start off outright already in prison. Your crime, singing, because all types of music, be it instrumental or vocal, is banned. Why? Because the government's a bunch of jackasses. That's why. Nice. In this world, it's basically... this world reminds me a lot of, like, maybe it's the internals of a computer or some shit. I'm not entirely sure. I don't fully grasp this world. But playing music creates electricity, basically, which powers everything, seemingly including people to a degree. So you apparently lived out in this bumfuck nowhere place where where the government doesn't sell energy, and they're the only ones allowed to now, because that's why they banned the singing music making, so they could seize the means of production for themselves, because they're elitist jackasses. So, obviously your character had to sing to, keep energy in her village, and she got arrested for that. So it starts off with you in prison, and you basically, your hacker brother gets in and messages you, and it's like, hey, yeah, I'm going to break you out. You need to figure out what you want to be, so I can send you the proper weapons and shit, because everything is downloaded. And then you get to pick one of the best things of the game, your class. I think there's 4 of them, maybe 8. I'm not really sure. I can't remember because it's been a while since I've looked at the very beginning of the game at this point. But basically you get a choice between a character that is all in, just attack. Obviously that's the one I chose. You can choose Samurai, which is heavy on defensive, one that does magic-y attacks with the guitar, basically, and I don't remember what the last one was, because I didn't choose it. I think the one that's pure attack is called Juggernaut, and that's the one I chose. And then you get to get out of prison, and you start fucking up every guard that you come across because they're jackasses and they need to be put in their place. And then you blow up the prison. Woohoo! This is the very start, like the prologue of the game right there, folks. That's just the prologue.
Jeez.
Then you land back on the planet, and you're just trying to take down the government still, more or less, by starting your own band. Because, you're already wanted, so why not make it significantly worse? So, throughout this game, you get to meet individuals, and how they react to you is based on which one of the life paths you chose. And different ones will ally with you for certain periods of time, and so on and so forth. And they'll also determine who has quests and stuff for you to do. Like, there are a bunch of quests that just anyone can do, but there's also some quests that are specific to characters that will only interact with you if you chose their style, path, life path, basically. So that was a really interesting mechanic. I did not get to interact with that a whole bunch because the first one you come across is Samurai, and I didn't choose that. So otherwise, this is a turn-based hex grid-based RPG. You kill the shit out of enemies. You get very little money, which is very painful. And you also get keys from enemies. Because unlike most RPGs, you don't get experience to level up in this game. Instead, you get keys. And with the keys, you can go into your skills menu, and you can use them to unlock skills. And many of the skills have multiple levels, and they all require increasingly unnecessary amount of keys. And they're not always positives for you. They're not just pure positives. They're not like, oh, you just have more damage you deal now. No, it might be like, hey, you get to deal more damage, but you take more damage from electric attacks. Have fun. And stuff like that. So usually for anything that's positive, there is a negative. Just the positives hopefully outweigh them. For my life path, electric was like my worst enemy because almost everything that I took made me weaker to electric attacks, and it's like, I'm so fucked. Because that is one enemies really like to use. And yeah, I will let Pernell join in now.
Okay. I'm also really glad that you started because I, even knowing certain bits like the narrative, I'm like, I don't fucking know half the time what I'm dealing with it. Just like, go over here. Okay, I'll go. What does this guy do with getting on his head?
Yeah, this game's the story makes no sense to me yet, so I don't blame you.
Yes, it's all over the damn place. With that said, though, I do like the environment they create. Like, the world they created is awesome looking. I like the graphics. I do like how much detail they put into like all the different descriptions. Like, certain RPGs, you lost to examine on the map, and then everything has something that can be described about the item. Well, this game has that in spades. Every little damn doodad has a description when you click it. I do enjoy that. The music in this game is freaking perb. I love every element of it that I've come across. I will also say, if you are choosing your first class, it might behoove you to not choose the one that looks the coolest, which to me was I guess it was called Sequencer. I can't remember. It was the person with the guitar, because that's what I picked. And while I am doing well with that class now, early on I was not, because their entire idea is they're more of a countering class. So all of your attacks are pretty much bolstering your defenses so that when someone attacks you, have to get the counter system down perfectly every time. So in this game, when enemies attack you in combat, because this is a hex-based battle system, and sometimes whether they're close to you or far away from you, enemies will strike. They will go into an animation, but there's a specific point in their animation where they will flash white. And it's at that time where you want to press the A button to, I guess, kind of block it as best you can and get a perfect block. If you do not perfect block, you'll take damage. If you get a perfect, you'll take no damage. But then you'll also counter if you get a perfect block. So with this class, you pretty much have to nail perfect blocks on all the attacks, at least for a good chunk of the game, before you can actually do damage to them. And then that makes it a little more annoying when enemies can just heal themselves and not attack you, blah, blah, blah.
To be fair with that, you in this game, you need to learn to perfect block pretty quickly, no matter what class you got.
Oh, that's good to hear, then.
This game
I thought it was like me.
Yeah, this game is extremely punishing. If you do not learn how to perfect block most attacks, you're going to die. And this game does not give a fuck. You will die, correct. And it will keep killing you until you figure it out.
I think one of the early tutorial battles, the character was like, "Geez, you were supposed to perfect block. I'll let you try again."
Yeah, I died there like
5 times.
Yeah, I died there 3 or 4 times myself before I finally figured it out. Yeah, this game doesn't play around. It does not care. Fuck you and the horse you rode in on.
I will say another thing. I'm not sure if you had the same problem I did, but I've gotten better with it over time. Is that even though the game has tutorials in the form of like these little discoverable USB sticks, there's a lot to pick up on this game. Whether it's the terminology they use to describe all the attributes and ways the game works, the fact that even though I think they do say it in like one of the specific menus, I didn't realize for the longest time that electrical energy can be used to charge your actual attacks. Like, it did not click for me until I watched an enemy do it. And I was like, what is he doing? And that's how I learned that enemy was about to cast a magic attack, and they would always drain their entire EP gauge before they did it. And then I accidentally held a button down. I was like, wait a minute. Holy crap, I could do that too.
Yeah, the tutorials in this game are not always the greatest, because that is explained in a tutorial once, and it forces you to do it, but it doesn't really explain what you're doing, so it doesn't connect with anything that you're actually doing until you happen to accidentally do it later on. You're like, oh, I'm stupid.
Yep. And I honestly have no shame. I'm sure the developer could be listening to this and go, man, what a fucking pair of idiots. And they're like, you know what? I'll eat that. I'm fine with it.
I'm fine being an idiot. It doesn't change the fact that it was not very well explained.
Yep. But I will say I did eventually pick it up, which is enough for me. And I do like the combat in this game a lot. Once it started to click with me, I enjoyed it. Attacks in this game, the way they handle those, I think is pretty cool too, because at least for my class, though I'm assuming every class is a different version of this, there's different like weapon types and like musical instruments that you can pick up and equip. And depending on what instrument you pick up and where you equip it to on one of 4 spots on a diamond, it determines what the attack will actually do and what it affects. Like, there is your life energy and your electric energy, and there is your electrical defense and your life defense.
Yep.
Between those things, you might get an item where it's like, if you put it here, it's going to affect this, but if you put it here, it's going to affect that. And it helps you like, okay, well, I want to put the guitar here, blah, blah, blah. And you'll be kind of swapping where you want items to go on this grid. And it kind of gives you a little bit like a light sense of customization for how you want your character to play out. Also, I just like also these attacks can get a bit of a bolster in the form of I'm not sure. I can't remember what the exact item is called, but it's like a stat, an attribute for the attacks. So, for example, with my character,
I think,
was it dissonance? It might be. But what it was when you, let's say, for example, I found one that offered a cure attribute. So I applied it to my guitar, because the guitar, when I used it, I played a little short music mini game. And then after I completed it, I would charge up some electrical energy.
Yep.
But I was like, man, it'd be nice if I had a way to freaking charge up my health energy too. So by equipping it to that, I just kind of made that a dual purpose ability, where when I played the guitar, I charged electrical energy by a good chunk, and I gave myself a little bit of life energy too. So I could just use that as my de facto curing ability. And then there's other abilities I can use. I kind of like does like extra damage if I use it. I'm like, okay, I need to really do some damage with this hammer because I finally found a hammer that I can use for like actual offensive attacks. So I slapped a little bonus ability on that to make it do that much more damage. So I was like, if I'm going to focus on doing like the hammer attack when I want to just take an enemy down, I want to make it count. So I slapped it on there. But yeah, I think this game is it has a high learning curve, even with you finding even with the early tutorial plus finding the USB tutorial bits. I think there's a bit of a high learning curve on getting into this and really feeling the enjoyment. But I do believe, at least as far as the world exploration and the combat goes, if you allow yourself to get past that component of the game, there's a lot to love here. Like I like it a lot. I really do. I just wish I had a better understanding of what the hell I'm actually concerned about. But
you're lucky. I still don't have the ability to heal yet. As a Juggernaut, I don't think I'll ever get that ability, which makes it very hard to play a Juggernaut, as I've learned very thoroughly. Thankfully, there are a lot of save points in the game, and obviously when you get to them, it refills your health. So whilst I have a lot of trouble, I tend to make it through areas by the skin of my teeth thanks to that. Admittedly. But yeah, you really want to... I would suggest starting the game multiple times and trying each class and figuring out what actually works. Because just choosing what sounds cool may not actually behoove you. Because that may not actually be the playstyle you really want to choose. Because I am very sad that I still can't heal myself with anything but items that are stupidly expensive.
Chug them milkshakes.
Yeah. Everything in this game costs so much.
You can only carry 3 of the little bastards, too. That's what hurts the most. Like, if I find one on the ground and I happen to be maxed out at 3, the game will give you the ability to sell it on the spot if you maxed out and you want to just dump it. I'll sell everything else. I will not sell the milkshakes that are on the ground unless I don't think I need to be in the area anymore. And that's why your issues with healing. But the milkshakes are what you're buying.
I don't tend to use them. I'm bad at these games.
Wait a minute. You want the ability to cure. The item to cure is the milkshake, but you don't want to use the milkshake.
Nope.
It's like they're mega elixirs or something. What are you doing over there?
Well, in this game, you can buy your healing items, and I believe energy providing items and stuff like that. But you can also buy things as you can continue the game, like weapons, which there are a bunch of, or even better, in my opinion anyways, stat increasing items that you can occasionally find. Sometimes it'll be like, oh, buy this and consume it, and you'll get +1 to your life points, or +1 to your energy points, or +1 to your dissonance, which is the best one that you can get. Because it makes all your attacks better. So, yeah, I have a tendency to save all my money for that stuff, so I don't use healing items, and I sell every one of them I come across specifically so I can buy that stuff, so I can survive just that little bit longer. Because I'm bad at this. I'm a hoarder, and I do not apologize for that.
Well, you are hoarding our time right now. This review's going way too long. I need a price. It's $20.
Totally. You just gave us the price. We don't need it.
Okay, I need a verdict. It's $20.
Yeah. This is totally a buy, I think.
Oscar Mayer Wiener.
This is a good game. I can recommend it to people. Like I said, it has a high barrier of entry in the sense of like, compared to a lot of other JRPGs or RPGs rather, where it's just like, hey, you know all your terminology, you know what you're doing. This game, they kind of go with building their own vibe across the board. So you're coming in learning it as you go. But if you can get past that, I think this game is solid, and as such, I'm going to give it a recommended buy.
Cool. Sounds good. All right. Aki, what are your thoughts?
I liked it. It was fun. And I think it's totally worth buying. So go buy it, folks.
Sounds good. All right, moving on. Next game is Cash Cow DX, developed and published by Flynn's Arcade, released September 26th on the Switch for $5.99. Holy cow, it's all about the Mooney. Embark on an utterly moveless adventure where you run, jump, and slide to rescue Cash Cow's riches from the grasp of those sneaky pickpockets and reclaim what's rightfully hers. Make no mistake, the game is tough as nails. Are you up for the challenge? Cash Cow DX is a fast and furious blast from the past with an 80s-inspired arcade experience released 40 years late. Chris, what is Cash Cow DX?
See, that'll make our guys feel better about releasing their game after 5 years. This one took 40 years. It's a record. Okay, so yes, I have to make this short because who knows how long my internet's gonna go. So yeah, this is a game from Flynn's Arcade, developed by whomever. It must have been developed by whomever developed, Dodo Donuts and what was that other Murtop.
I think Flynn's publishes and develops them themselves.
Okay, they have a lot of games they publish. That's why I'm like, I wonder if it. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
hard going off the Switch info.
Yeah, it's hard to get that info off the Switch, honestly. But anyways, well, whomever made those games, I've reviewed both of those, and they were very fun. This one is also very fun. So what is going on here is this is a it's kind of like it's a single room puzzle game. But it does scroll left to right. I don't know if later levels also scroll up and down. I doubt it because of the wraparound nature of it. But it's going to remind players a lot of kind of a mix between, I would say, Pac-Man and Mappy. You play as the Cash Cow, who is not any further named, so we assume her name is Cash. And your basic goal is to go around these multi-tiered levels and pick up the cash that's like laying around. Of course, there are enemies around in the form of a robot piggy, like a kind of flame piggy, and a party pig, which is the big bad guy. And basically, there's different ways of dealing with them. There's a little bit of a, it's kind of a cross between like a power pellet and like a Donkey Kong hammer, but there's a pickaxe that you can pick up in stages that makes you invincible and also gets rid of the enemies. The enemies are not respawning or anything like that, so it's one of those things where you can kind of get rid of them, and then that clears your path, and of course gets you more points. More points being what you're going for, other than completing the game. So it's that helps out, and there's also different jewels you can pick up to kind of double your points. So you can kind of make a concerted effort to get more points by going for those first, and then they're on a timer, so then you can pick up your double cash if you're so greedily inclined. And then past that, it's. They add in a couple other things. I said it's like Mappy because starting in stage 2, you might run into like a trampoline that kind of bounces you up higher, which is pretty cool. And the game is pretty hard. It's very fun, but the one hit from the enemy and you die unless you've got the pickaxe, and 3 lives and you get a game over even if you've made progress. And you have to start over. There are other modes to the game that are, and there's actually a whole second cow, Turbo, which basically, according to the stats, gives you more speed but less jump and less control. You also have 2 levels of difficulty for the arcade mode. Actually, I'm sorry, 3. You have hard mode too. But they are locked away behind progress. Actually, everything except the normal normal cow and easy arcade difficulty is locked at least behind beating the easy mode. So I don't know how many levels this thing has. I'm not sure if that was advertised, but I certainly could only get a few in there. But nevertheless, it kept me coming back like any good arcade game would. It's very much like a one stick, one button situation. So if you got an arcade stick, you can actually play that with this, or any kind of clever control scheme you care to come up with. It does have a practice mode if you want to practice, and beyond that, like I said, it's got some different settings. It's got a pretty cute bezel that I actually quite like, but you can turn it off if you want to. It's got scan lines that actually curve the screen, so like kind of more authentic looking, but still you can leave those off, and I did.
Good.
Screen flash and shake you can toggle on and off, and then there's a thing called inertia mode, which is really interesting. So you have a modern and a classic setting. In modern mode, your cow stops on a dime and you can more accurately platform, but if you put it on classic mode, classic mode, then as you stop, you'll kind of slide a bit. Think Mario 1, Super Mario 1, that is, kind of thing. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, like I said, with same thing with Murtop and Dodo Donuts, this game it has that pixely look of a classic kind of game like this, but it's absolutely modern. The sprites are very animated. They got a lot of frames going in these animations. Your cow really bounces around and stuff, and everybody's got a lot of personality. Runs at like this kind of smooth 60 frames a second kind of look. It definitely it doesn't seem inhibited by any hardware limitations. It's just one of those things where it's neo retro as far as that goes. So yeah, no, it's not going to be mistaken for a game from 40 years ago. But at the same time, that's to its benefit, because it's, like I said, a very good game. It's got all of the benefits of 40 years of level design and kind of knowing what works and what what worked and what didn't in the old arcade days, and at the same time kind of putting it together in a nice tight package. So I like it. It's another hit from Flynn's Arcade.
Sounds good. It's $6. Give me your verdict.
Yeah, $6. It's an easy buy it. Can definitely recommend this one. Of the three, I think this one might be my favorite, but I really liked Murtop, so it could be recency bias. But yeah, I mean, check them all out. They're all pretty cheap, so you got it can fit in any budget.
Cool.
Yeah,
right.
I didn't lose my internet.
Yay! Disconnect.
Yay. Yeah. Just kidding.
Oh, man. All right. Next up, Parking Garage Rally Circuit, developed and published by Walaber Entertainment. Released September 20th on Steam for $9.99. Retro arcade rally racing in parking garages. Precision driving with tight, simple controls and arcade physics, all in a Sega Saturn style presentation. Pernell, what's going on in Parking Garage Rally Circuit?
I'm going to just lead this review off by saying a very specific thing, which is that if you are at any point in your life were a fan of Sega Rally Championship, you should buy this. Just I'll throw it out there right there. You don't have to listen to the rest of this, because that's how I feel about it. If you have interest in that game, just buy this. Other people, what the heck is this? All right, then let's get down to business. So, there you go. Right there. It's called Sega Rally. Parking Garage Rally Circuit is a game where you get to choose a car and drive around 8 different tracks and 3 different variations as you progress through it in varying difficulties. Where the idea is that you are pretty much blasting through these levels for best times. The levels themselves, however, all have one very specific thing in common, and that is that you are driving through different types of parking garages. Every once in a while, you might leave the garage and come back in, but you're driving around garages, and it is freaking ridiculous. You're driving rally cars, and as you drive, you accelerate with the trigger button. I'm playing on Steam Deck, big surprise there, right? You accelerate with the right trigger button. There is an actual press at the right time to get a boosted start. I'm not going to tell you what that is. Figure it out for yourself. But after you've pulled that off, you're off to the races at the sound of the go. Other cars on the track come in the form of ghosts, basically reflecting gold, silver, and bronze times. Initially, I kind of thought that was an annoying premise. Why am I not racing against other physical cars? But then you have to remember, you're driving in freaking parking garages. That would be kind of a pain in the ass to have to rally around other cars in these tight spaces. And they are very tight spaces. But that doesn't mean that the game is not fun or accessible to play, because quite the contrary. This is very much at its core arcade racing bliss. As you accelerate, you are able to drift into turns. Once you do a drift by pressing the proper button to do so, you will start generating at this point in time, very famous sparks. You had a level 1 and a level 2. Level 2 is a stronger boost, but it also takes longer to pull it off. And lots of the appeal and basically method to getting the best out of your times is knowing when to drift for a short period of time and when to drift for a long period of time. And you'll be using that drift to make a lot of tight corners too. Sometimes it might not even behoove you to make a sharp turn, or a long drift, simply because you don't have enough time to do it. But the game itself is pretty much composed of many experiences where you'll be doing forms of driving, never braking. If you're braking, what the hell is wrong with you? But driving, never braking, and drifting to beat the best times on different levels. And believe it or not, despite the fact that the game takes place in garages, that does not stop them from getting some good variety out of some of these tracks. Like, you'll have a level where a boulders, or debris is falling on the track and blocking your progress. There'll be parts where you're driving in the snow, elements where you're pretty much just on dirt rally track, but it's just long enough to get out of the garage into the roof of a garage. Some of those really cool garages where it's just like a constant bridge going upwards and upwards, but it's a spiral, so you're just drifting constantly up a spiral track. It's really freaking cool. This game, this is another. I have to do it every time this happens with the show. This is another one of those games where Joe's like, "You want to try this game?" What the hell is this? It looks stupid. And then I ended up taking it on because I like the retro vibe of it. Let me see what they're going with. This just seems just the right kind of stupid. I have to see. And I think that's the best way to describe the game in the grand scheme of things, too. It's the right kind of stupid. Because
the main reason I offered this one to you is because you asked about Victory Heat Rally. And I was like, wow, they seem kind of similar. I wonder if he'd want this one, too.
And the answer turned out to be, you're damn right. Because this is if you just tell somebody, I feel like anytime I recommend this game to a person sight unseen, it's like, hey, it's called Parking Garage Rally Circuit. They're going to go, the hell are you talking about? Parking Garage? No, hear me out. The game is good. Just play the game and you'll see that it's a winner. And it truly, truly is. I know a lot of people mainly because of the whole VGM community, Sega Rally soundtrack and Daytona soundtracks are peak in those communities. And I would like to believe that also means they like the games too. So I'm going to be toting this thing all over the place to people. You need to be playing this game. If you still have fond memories of Sega Rally, you should be playing this game, because this to me is what people should be doing when they're trying to capture the magic of yesteryear in their games. This is what I'm talking about. This is solid. And I would like to hope and believe that somewhere in the future there will be more tracks that come down the pike. Maybe even some little weird side versions of games, like chasing the steeple across a course or something. I don't freaking know. But as it stands, even though, especially for the price you mentioned early on, this is a no-brainer.
$10 game. I was surprised it was so cheap. This looks like it'd be something closer to 20 or something, but for $10, give us your verdict.
I'm not even going to give it the fucking why not. This is you bet your damn ass you should buy this game. It's worth your money. It's worth your time. And even if you only end up playing it for 2 hours or something, 2 or 3 hours, that's 2 or 3 hours well spent on fun. You can't put a price on fun. Wait, I just did. It's $9.99. Go ahead and buy it.
Well, if you buy it before the 30th, it's $8.49. So say 15% and buy it quick.
You can get a bubblegum ball from a store that may still sell them. I don't know. Worth it.
Indeed.
Do it.
You got 1 week to do it. So, all right. One final game to talk about tonight is an email review for Pneumata, developed by Deadbolt Interactive, published by Perp Games, released September 20th on Series X and S, PS5, and PC for $34.99. PS4 and Xbox One versions releasing in the coming weeks. Prepare to question what is reality and what is insanity in one of the scariest psychological horror games in years. The tenants are going missing, screams echo, and blood seeps through the walls of Clover Hill. Our friend Horror Acolyte wrote and reviewed this one, and our good friend Norg's gonna read it for us. So George, take it away.
Thanks, Joe. You're the best. Pneumata Review by Horror Acolyte.
Pneumata is a first-person survival horror game that definitely takes inspiration from genre greats such as Resident Evil and possibly a dash of Outlast. You play as David Hernandez, who wakes up one stormy night in 2018 to the sound of his doorbell ringing at 3:33 a.m. Looking outside, you see a car parked in the middle of the road as the ringing of your doorbell persists amidst the occasional sound of thunder. As you open your bedroom door, a strange figure walks across your hallway into another room. You rush over to the room to encounter this scoundrel, but upon entering, your vision becomes slightly blurred as you fall to your knees, moaning in pain. After a brief moment, you get back up to find no one in the room with you. Downstairs, you are greeted by your tiny dog, Martian. Yes, you can pet the dog. Achievement unlocked. 10 out of 10 game. Review concluded. If only. You finally answer your door to find a white box sitting on your porch. Picking it up causes the parked car to speed away. Inside is a blood-stained VHS tape labeled Milton, Missouri. Side note, VHS, for those of you who were born after 1994, stands for Video Home System, which was an analog video recording on magnetic tape cassettes. They were large, they needed to be rewound, and they were the only means by which we actually watched videos at home. It was, to the Betamax format back then, what Blu-ray was to HD DVD. Inferior, but widely accepted because of money. Exploring the house, you learn more about David. He and his girlfriend Jamie were in a boating accident some time ago, but Jamie was never found, and David was left with $120,000 in medical bills and some neurological issues related to memory. You are still searching for Jamie, but it seems everyone else has given up hope. Back to the task at hand. You head to the basement to find your VHS player hooked up and ready to go, like every regular person does in 2018. Inserting the VHS tape switches the game to a flashback sequence played out in a first-person perspective viewed through an almost fishbowl-like camcorder lens with an appropriately matching camcorder HUD. But don't worry, you will never need to search for a battery to keep it powered on. It is a dark and stormy night. You start out shouting Jamie's name with no reply back. Looking around, you appear to be on a small island. Boat wreckage from multiple boats scattered around the shore. In the distance is a lighthouse that is still powered on. You decide to seek help there. Every so often, the screen will crackle with black and white lines accompanied by a warbled static sound effect. Moving up to the lighthouse, you see a blood trail leading to the adjoining building. Behind the building, a sealed bunker labeled Paradise Group, Department of Homeland Security. Moving through the building attached to the lighthouse, you see a flash of the same figure from your house that quickly vanishes. With the storm raging on outside, you enter the lighthouse and climb the stairs. Jamie's voice can be heard over a radio calling out to David for help. Her cries silenced by a loud, foreboding horn that echoes above you before cutting back to reality. It's now time to visit Milton, Missouri. It may provide answers to Jamie's whereabouts. You swiftly drive there but crash your vehicle while trying to avoid a deer on the road. After the crash, you casually get out of your car to find the deer you hit now deceased, and somehow there are now obstacles on both sides of the road. But luckily, you are unscathed and at your destination. You open your trunk to grab a flashlight, pistol, and backpack. After retrieving some rusted bolt cutters in a nearby barn, you open the locked gate to the town and make your way inside to the madness that awaits. Pneumata plays out like a typical survival horror game, moving from area to area looking for supplies to help you stay alive, searching for keys and various items to gain access to new areas, and trying to find information on what exactly is happening around you. Every now and then, you will also switch to a flashback sequence with the first-person camcorder perspective. Most of the story is explained through various notes scattered throughout the world, in-game cutscenes, and through a handful of environmental pieces. As you explore the small town of Milton, it seems to be mostly abandoned and left to the decaying touch of time, aside from a church and an apartment complex which are still in use. The religious people of Milton have been afflicted with some type of virus or ailment that has affected their minds, turning them into crazed religious fanatics and others into various monstrosities. It seems the origin of this plague may have been from an area referred to as the Island. Possibly the one from the VHS tape? An organization was brought in to help research and fight the epidemic, but appear to have had no luck in doing so. Around the town you will find displays of cult-like behavior, blood trails leading into houses, burning crosses, pig corpses, and severed pig heads casually spread about. And the occasional message like, "The prophet chosen by the Lord will set the world aflame," or "proclaim the gospel." Side note, this is obviously the birthplace of every single one of those bat guano crazy, sign-wielding, megaphone-holding, shouting, screaming, religious zealots who give Christianity a bad name, who show up at every single public event that you can think of. In the apartments, you will see the occasional corpse that has been fused to the wall with giant fleshy sacs pulsating on its body, long blood-colored tendrils spreading out to cover the walls. You will encounter a number of, mostly humanoid, enemies on your mission, bloodthirsty cultists wearing pig masks trying to cut you open, zombie-like enemies wearing medical suits, fleshy-looking ghouls, among others. Also, a handful of boss encounters. To fight these fiends, you have a small assortment of weapons, a few guns like a pistol, shotgun, and machine gun, along with some melee weapons such as a pipe or a baseball bat. All of these can be hotkeyed to quickly swap between them. Most combat in the game has enemies rushing toward you with you needing to run and reposition yourself to take aim and shoot at them or explosive barrels. Stamina is technically limited, but your bar drains slowly and replenishes at a decent rate, so there aren't many times it is a huge factor. If you want to use melee weapons or if enemies get within reach, you do have some defensive maneuvers. You can block to reduce incoming damage or use a timely dodge. You also have a kick attack that helps push enemies back a bit, the animation resembling Duke's Mighty Boot from Duke Nukem. This can also be used to break some crates and obstacles out of combat. Guns have limited ammo, and melee weapons have a finite durability before they break. Your health is displayed on the inventory screen and is represented by a heart with a numerical percentage beside it, which can be replenished with bandages and painkillers. Health items and ammo are relatively plentiful throughout the game, so you don't have to be too conservative with your resources. There is limited space in your backpack to hold items, but enough that inventory management isn't terribly stressful. If you do run out of space, you can make a stop at one of several rest areas in the game and have a communal storage box, a tape recorder to save your progress to your heart's content, and a calming melody to greet you, offering a brief reprieve from the horrors beyond their walls. Most items in the environment that can be interacted with display a marker above them when you are about a few feet away, which makes resources and key items easy to find. Certain obstacles you need to destroy, climb, or pass through have yellow paint covering them, making them easier to spot. I had high hopes for this game, but unfortunately as a whole, Pneumata is a slightly underwhelming horror experience. The visuals and atmospherics are probably the best part of the game, but the elements with body horror and fleshy mutations stood out among others. A lot of the areas are dark enough that I kept the flashlight on for the majority of the game, which was fine, but the flashback sequences through the fishbowl-like lens made the brightness of the flashlight somewhat obnoxious when reflecting off objects at close range. The sound design was good at keeping the tone ominous throughout. Most of the story elements were either not very interesting, not explored in enough detail, or a little too similar to popular games in the genre. However, there were some neat ideas presented with the flashback sequences. The voice acting was passable, but had some poor delivery on occasion. Side note, call me. We'll talk. Combat was basic but fun. The attack animations looked quite bad for enemies, along with some running animations. Enemy AI is really dumb a lot of the time. Enemies will get stuck in place or they will stop chasing you at the edge of certain rooms and just stand there. I'm not sure if I was just bad at using it, but the dodge mechanic seemed really unpolished, to the point I just decided to forego its use. I also ran into some glitches, like key items you couldn't interact with or ladders that couldn't be climbed. These were remedied by reloading saves. Even though you can manually save with multiple save slots, the game will autosave over your last save, so be warned. There are no difficulty options for Pneumata. The game is pretty easy other than a couple of key areas. Those familiar with the genre are probably looking at a playtime of around 5 to 6 hours, depending on how much time you spend exploring. With all that being said, the game was still slightly impressive for being created by a singular developer. They obviously have a love for the genre, and I would like to see some other games from them in the future. I still could only give this game a try it and recommend picking it up on sale, or avoid it altogether if you are looking for a challenging experience. And that's the show for the day. I was going to kick it back to Joe for closing ceremonies and then realized I don't have to because I have all the power! Giant buckets of thanks to Pernell, Chris, Aki, and Andy for hanging out and being there. Am I the only one who thinks that Aki and Andy would make a great name for a Gen Z YouTube band? Get after it. Thanks also to Oceans Andrew and Zircon of Overclocked Remix fame for jumping in for an extended-length interview, and for fielding my super important inquiry. You know, I was today years old when I finally realized that Overclock Remix doesn't have anything to do with boosting the CPU power of your KitchenAid. Who'd have thunk? Coming up is more music from the mighty and legendary Flowstone Saga. And in closing, I leave you with this contemplative thought. Clean mind, clean body. Take your pick.